2024 will soon bless us with yet another masterful RPG, this time in the form of Dragon's Dogma 2. I played a few hours of Capcom's chaotic sequel last month, and came away smitten with its mixture of epic monster battles and freeform exploration, even if I spent the entire preview getting lost in the woods and throwing goats off cliffs. But the fact I will soon take on my own quest and make a mark on this world that extends beyond random mischief has me so excited, even if I'll be forced to play it at 30 frames per second on console. Speaking to Game Informer, director Hideaki Itsuno finally cleared up a bunch of questions fans have had about performance on PS5 and Xbox, with fears that it might run terribly or not reach the desired benchmarks for an action RPG where player movement and reflexes are paramount. To break things down, Dragon's Dogma 2 will feature an uncapped frame rate, and none of the fidelity or performance presets we've grown accustomed to in other AAA games. Anyone hoping for consistent performance throughout the entire experience will probably be better off playing on PC. While I understand the disappointment fans are feeling about this announcement, after hours spent playing the game on retail hardware myself, I can't really say it's a deal breaker. Even amid enemy encounters featuring screen-filling monsters, I seldom noticed a dip in the quality and performance of visuals, nor did I have much trouble pulling off the required abilities or movements either. I was a nimble, capable warrior who could slay monsters and still make plenty of mistakes, but none of them were down to the game failing to keep up. If anything, I'll have a bigger issue with the presence of only a single save file, but that's a debate for another day. Players are mostly worried about both inconsistent performance and frame pacing, and the latter has proven to be an unpleasant blight on many beloved titles in the past, including From Software's Bloodborne, which, to this day, aside from user-created mods, hasn't been fixed. Back then, it was an unfortunate reality of the PS4 hardware unable to push beyond its limits, but that feels like less of an excuse for Dragon's Dogma 2, especially when other titles running on the RE engine like Resident Evil 4 and Devil May Cry can hit such benchmarks easily and look fantastic. Dragon's Dogma 2 is presenting a seamless open world with far more complicated combat and exploration though, and I have to imagine conversations were had during development about whether performance and fidelity modes were possible, and in realising otherwise, it was decided to stick with a single variable. It's old-fashioned, but I can't say I'm bothered by it when my history of such things has always proved lenient. Take Final Fantasy VII Rebirth for example, which shipped last month with a 30 frames per second fidelity mode and a performance mode which aims much higher. The cost of more frames is drastically inferior visuals, to the point where its open world and cinematic sequences are reduced to such an extent that their intended impact is lost. It just isn't worth the compromise, especially with a game where combat can be as mediated or challenging as you want it to be. Some players obviously prefer superior performance, but I've always put graphics well above that. Sony exclusives like God of War Ragnarok and Horizon Forbidden West are also meeting us in the middle, with variable refresh rates that still maintain 4K image quality, but ensure performance reaches 40 frames per second with the help of certain displays. It might only be 10 frames, but in moment-to-moment action, such an increase is significant. Enough for me at the very least, as a console gamer who hasn't been spoiled by the performance majesty of the PC, where I imagine the majority of these complaints are going to come from. But maybe I should care, or I haven't seen the light of superior hardware, where limitations in performance and visuals aren't something you need to think about. I won't make up my mind until Dragon's Dogma 2 is in my hands and I've spent dozens of hours with it, and if its frame rate and image quality stick in my mind as constant annoyances, or sing into the background as I grow used to its forgivable inconsistencies. That's how things have happened before, as there is a big difference between games that perform and look terrible, and those that abide by a specific target in order to make the experience more palatable. Like Rebirth, Ragnarok, and Horizon Forbidden West before it, Dragon's Dogma 2 seems to embrace the latter. I will admit that communication about its technical shortcomings has been far less than ideal, but as the dust settles and I pierce yet another monster with my blade, performance will be the last thing on my mind.